Welcome to another edition of We're Not Doing a Podcast. Mark Weber here with Jarrett Least. Jarrett, it's the first night of Hanukkah. Right behind you, you have a little cute Happy Hanukkah sign. Where does Hanukkah rank among the best Jewish holidays for you?
It's number one by far. Well, I'm biased also when it comes to Hanukkah because my birthday usually falls out around when Hanukkah is going on. So when we were much younger, I was able to get double the presents, and I didn't get missed out in terms of, oh, well, your birthday's during Hanukkah, so you get one or the other. No. I lived it up. I
What
got
age
all
did you stop getting the double presents if your birthday fell in Hanukkah, or is it just been always?
probably freshman year of college. Probably so eight. Once we went to college, so like around 18. But I mean, once 13 through 17, I mean the amount of presents started going down. I mean,
When did you stop getting the 8 presents for every day?
when did I stop? Oh, that probably stopped when I was probably 11 or 12.
I'm
But
shocked. My bet was 14 for you.
yeah,
You
probably
seem like
11.
a middle school coming home from school and you're getting a lot of presents on each day. I could so see that. And maybe ninth grade being the final time that
Now,
happened.
my question to you is when it came to Hanukkah, when you were younger, did you well, you always had your requests of gifts you wanted. Did you prefer getting the gift you wanted the most the first night or the last night? How did you want like the best to start or the best as the 8 nights went along? What was your
I
preference?
Great question. I had a weird thing where I like the best gift to be number 2 or 3 because coming off the top, you would get something that was small, kind of looking forward to back in the day, a CD, and then something more exciting day 2 or day 3. So you had something to look forward to. I think after I turned 8 or 9, I never had 8 days worth of presents. It just never happened. I would get maybe a nice card by day 6 for the most part.
Well, I guess you got a good Hanukkah present recently, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the sports world, but um it's always a good time for me considering the birthday's coming up. So hopefully the more presents will be coming my way.
Jarrett, you mentioned, you just stole my line. Lots of Yankee fans got their early Hanukkah present this week as they acquired Juan Soto from the San Diego Padres. Are the Yankees back as the evil empire of Major League Baseball?
No, not even close to being back as the evil empire. The evil empire that was the New York Yankees would be signing Juan Soto to an extension, or well, he's not going to sign an extension, but re-signing Juan Soto when he's a free agent next year, signing Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and to put a cherry on top, adding a guy like a Jordan Montgomery to add to their starting rotation because the Yankees still have some holes on their team. It's great that they got Juan Soto. I think it's a fantastic move. And quite frankly, it's a move where Brian Cashman can honestly say to Yankee fans, get off my damn back for a short period of time. But the evil empire, that's when we were talking in 2009, when the Yankees signed CC Sabathia, Mark Teixeira, and AJ Burnett, in which everyone truly hated the Yankees. It's just very surprising how the Yankees were seemingly the only legitimate team with interest in trading for Juan Soto. I understand they gave up a lot to get him, but they pulled off a great trade and they acquired him by not spending all the money in the world. The evil empire consists of just spending all the money in the world. And I think the evil empire could apply potentially in a year from now if my New York Mets steal Juan Soto from your New York Yankees. That would constitute an evil sort of, well, it wouldn't be an empire because the Mets haven't won shit, but that would be an evil sort of thing to do. The Yankees aren't the evil empire just yet.
Well, the Yankee fans have been waiting for the Mets to become the evil empire for quite some time since Steve Cohen bought the team. As we've mentioned a ton of time on this podcast, That has not been the case in the Steve Cohen era. And let me tell you this. When it comes to Juan Soto, he is going to a team that is a bottom 5 offensive team in Major League Baseball. Last year, bottom 5 in batting average and on base percentage. Juan Soto is going to help, but not solve the situation. Beyond Aaron Judge, there really isn't anyone in the Yankees lineup that makes it evident that they are a serious World Series contender. Now, there have been betting odds where the Yankees went from the 7th best odds to win the World Series to the 3rd. And I don't see why. Because beyond Soto and Judge, you have a very disappointing lineup filled with players that are not going to move soon. DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton. The evil empire, as you mentioned, is if the Yankees are in that prime position to win the World Series and be serious and potentially the only World Series contender. Juan Soto is going to help this Yankees team a lot, and he is going to be a fantastic Yankee. This is one of the best Yankees acquisitions in the last few years. But the problem is, as we've seen in the last few years, especially, they kind of make this big splashy move and nothing else. This has been in discussion whether the evil empire is back for the last few years. 2020, Garrett Cole. Before that, in 2018, Giancarlo Stanton. And then going into last season, they give the major deal to Aaron Judge. So getting Juan Soto, as we've seen, is really not going to solve a whole lot for the New York Yankees in the 2024 season unless they make other moves.
Yeah, the evil empire. When you talk about evil empire, it's when everyone throughout Major League Baseball and fans hate the New York Yankees when they just win World Series after World Series after World Series.
But they still hate them regardless, though.
Of course,
People just have a hatred towards the New York Yankees.
They do, but I think that it's not as much as it was in the past. And I think a lot of that, you can say however you want. I think the fact that they don't have the richest ownership in baseball has kind of taken away some of that hatred, because people, they just hate the fact that Steve Cohen is the richest owner in the sport. And he certainly gets in the heads of a lot of people throughout Major League Baseball. I mean, in the last...
Until the season starts and they don't make the playoffs or get bounced very early.
Well, on the last collective bargaining agreement, you had the Steve Cohen tax. So it clearly goes to show you how people just have Steve Cohen in their heads. And we all know Rob Manfred. I don't know. He's no fan of Steve Cohen. Also, John Morosi, who works for MLB Network. He has anti-Met propaganda whenever he's linking teams. He never includes the Mets when it comes to a guy like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Clearly, the Mets are interested in him. It's a different topic for another day. But people just, they hate Steve Cohen so much to where, I'm not saying people don't hate the Yankees, but they were just the one team where everyone hated, and it really wasn't anyone else. People hate the Houston Astros when it came to the sign stealing scandals. So there's multiple teams throughout Major League Baseball that other fans can hate. And I think also the fact that the Yankees haven't won a World Series in 14 seasons, it makes it not as much of an empire as the way it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the Yankees still have a lot of work to do. They need to fill some holes in their starting rotation. And the pieces that they traded to get Juan Soto, that was all part of their pitching depth that got them through the 2023 season. It wasn't a successful one, but you gave up a lot of arms, and we all know over the course of a 162-game season, you need all the arms in the world. Where are those arms coming from now when it comes to the Yankees? It's going to be a dynamic 1-2 punch of Judge and Soto, but like you mentioned, I also think you really need to get bounce-back seasons from DJ LeMahieu and Anthony Rizzo. If those two guys can get back to what they've been capable of doing in years past, now I think you're really talking about a real World Series contender. And maybe then we'll start truly hating the New York Yankees again and then being considered the evil empire. But it's got to be more than one world championship as well.
A superstar is in the Bronx, but where there is not a superstar has been consistently under center for the New York Jets post Aaron Rodgers this season. Zach Wilson will be the starting quarterback for the New York Jets. Is Wilson actually the best option under center for the Jets?
For the rest of this season, obviously he is. Look, when it comes to the rest of this season, there's just nothing more. There's nothing more to talk about with this team. It's just a revolving door of ineptitude at quarterback. They tried Tim Boyle for a game and a half. He stunk. They cut him. They probably cut him because he maybe considered the rat when it came to that story in The Athletic, when it came to Zach Wilson being reluctant to play. So Tim Boyle's gone. We saw Trevor Siemian for a very short period of time.
And he managed 3 fumbles during that period of time, too, which is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Zach Wilson only did that once this season.
They're all terrible. They're all terrible. Of the options you have in the building, Zach Wilson's the best. But it's like, what are we talking about? There's nothing more to talk about. Honestly, when it comes to just my outrage, I'm not going to sit here and be angry anymore because the season's done. The season's over. You might as well just move on to the 2024 offseason. SNY Connor Hughes reported a few hours ago that it's looking very likely that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going to be brought back for the 2024 season. You just got to load up and get a legitimate number 2 wide receiver, improve the offensive line, and especially get a viable backup quarterback to back up a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers going into next season, because we just can't repeat the same story next year. It was Groundhog Day this year.
Would you rather them sign a veteran quarterback next season or draft one if they get a top 10 pick?
I mean, if it depends if the pick is a top 2 pick and you're in position to draft Caleb Williams, Drake May, you got to take one of those 2. You just can't.
What if it's just a top 10 pick and you have Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix in there?
I would personally take Michael Penix Jr., but I knowing the Jets,
there's your answer.
They won't. I would do it. I would take Penix because I just think we've seen it. We've seen Patrick Mahomes. He sits for a year and he blossoms. Now, not every situation is this way, but we've seen
Aaron Rodgers did it with Brett Favre. We literally saw it with him.
Exactly. Aaron Rodgers sat. We're seeing now Jordan Love start to come into his own. I just think when it comes to the Jets, they simply can't draft a quarterback and have that guy start from day one, because whether it's the franchise is cursed, inept, the coaching staff is horrible, all the above. You could draft a quarterback, but have that guy sit. Now, if they're in position to draft Michael Penix Jr., if I was the GM, I would draft Michael Penix Jr. I don't think they're going to do that, because if a top offensive lineman like Joe Alt from Notre Dame, or I forgot his name, from Penn State, that guy, exactly, or Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, they're probably going to take one of those 3. But that's the other issue when it comes to Joe Douglas still being the GM of this team. He's not going to take another quarterback. He drafted Zach Wilson. He traded for Aaron Rodgers. What's he going to draft another quarterback? I mean, he'll be like a cat with 9 lives. So he's going to have to take an offensive skill player, whether it's a receiver, Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia, or an offensive lineman. So you're asking me, I would take Michael Penix Jr. or Jaden Daniels and have him sit for hopefully 2 years under Rodgers. But who knows? Zach Wilson's the best option for the rest of this season, but this season's just a lost cause. Are you even interested anymore in following the rest of the season? Because it's just so terrible at this point.
I am, because I'm hoping that they get a higher draft pick. Now, we talk about the Jets. week after week, a team we haven't talked about in quite some time. The New York Islanders have been at the top of Jarrett's mind in recent days. Jarrett, who do you blame more for the, I don't want to say struggles around the Islanders, but the frustrations? Lou or Lane?
That's the easiest answer to ever. Well, actually, it's not so easy because
That's why I'm asking it.
Lou Lamoriello fired Barry Trotz and he installed this absolute brain dead of a head coach in Lane Lambert. So I guess it's got to be Lane Lambert. The guy's inept. Because at the end of the day, Lou Lamoriello kind of built a roster in which the Islanders were able to actually have leads in the third period. But this guy's it's mind-boggling. He has to be the worst coach I have ever seen. You can't possibly have leads every single game in the third period and lose. They've blown 11 third period leads in 24 games this season, Mark. I mean, if you blow 10 third period leads in a span of 5 years, that's too much. It's actually insane. I don't know what you're laughing at, the fact that I'm outraged over something hockey or just the arguments that I'm making. I don't know what it is at this point.
It's the hockey, because you've been very keen on not talking about certain topics on this podcast. I see this rage from you when you're texting about the Islanders.
He should
so
be
that's
fired.
why we got to talk about it. But the thing is, I'm going to go with Lou because over the years, it's been the same players every single year. And aside from Bo Horvat, there really hasn't been any acquisitions that he's made to make this team a lot better. They've thrown the same men on the ice for so many years. Brock Nelson, Matt Barzal, Anders Lee. These guys are good players. These guys got them to back-to-back conference finals appearances in 2020 and 2021. But what did they do to get over the hump? Nothing. And that is on Lou's part. And if you look at their record over time with Barry Trotz on relative to where it's been in the NHL compared to Lane Lambert, it's really not that much of a difference. So you have to blame Lou because he came in with this big resume, drafting big for the Maple Leafs with Austin Matthews, the Stanley Cup wins with the Devils. But where has it been for the Islanders? They're just throwing out the same team all the time, and all the players that have been successful with them came before Lou arrived in New York.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Lane Lambert's got to go. Lou Lamoriello's got to go. I was just outraged the other night when they blew 3-goal third period lead against one of the worst teams supposedly in NHL history. That was the only reason for my outrage. Other than that night when I was incensed, who really cares at this point? I don't care about hockey. They're stupid. The Islanders are just they're such a dumb franchise.
So then why was Lane getting you so riled up on Twitter and via text? If you don't care that much, why was he getting you so angry?
Because it's been the same thing every game. Every game they blow a third period lead. Like at some point, you got to fire the guy who's responsible for blowing third period leads every single game. I mean, if they actually held on to third period leads, they'd be one of the best teams in the NHL. They're winning. They actually are in a playoff position, which is just insane. Like they may be the worst decent team I think I've ever seen, because like the Islanders are horrible, but they're actually not based on the standings. It is what it is when it comes to the Islanders, but they're terrible, but they're not terrible. So I mean, it gives more of a justification why Lane Lambert still has a job, but it is what it is. I like going to the games with our good friend Steven.
Yeah, that's what always makes it fun. Barry Trotz for the Islanders, 16th most wins in the NHL during his tenure in New York. Lane Lambert, 18th. So really not that much of a difference. But one sport event where there is going to be a difference in terms of those fans watching are the college football playoffs. Everyone is debating about Florida State or Alabama, who should be in, who should not. Everyone's sick and tired of those debates. The real debate should be with college football playoffs is whether it makes more sense for the semifinal games that you played on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? Jared, what do you prefer, the New Year's Eve games or the New Year's Day games?
This may be the easiest question you've ever asked me. What do you think I'm going to say?
I have no idea. That's why I asked you.
Easily New Year's Day.
Oh, come on. I
No.
heavily disagree with you on this one.
Oh, I totally disagree with. First off, when it's New Year's Eve, you're watching the game, you're not home, you're probably out at a bar, and even if you're at a New Year's Eve party at someone's, it's just you're not paying attention to the game in any way, shape, or form. The game, New Year's Eve games, it's background. It's background noise, it's background television. That's all it is. You're not paying attention to it whatsoever. New Year's Day, you're either at home hungover, you're at home. You're not going to a New Year's Day party to someone's house, or you're either flying home from wherever you traveled of New Year's Eve. So you could be watching it on the plane with your headphones on New Year's Day. New Year's Eve, it's in the background. You're not paying attention to the game in any way, shape, or form. New Year's Day by far. And I always remember when it came to back then when we had the BCS, the Rose Bowl, which was always New Year's Day. The best day for college football is New Year's Day. New Year's Eve is just when just the shitty bowl games were always on. And it's just weird when in years past, you'd have the playoff games on New Year's Eve. It just felt like, oh, wait, well, these are the most important games of the season. And it's just background noise at a bar that you're at for New Year's Eve celebrating. So New Year's Day for me, easily. Why do you say New Year's Eve?
So I used to be on the New Year's Day over New Year's Eve train, but this is where I changed. The problem is you have two humongous games on New Year's Day. You're tired that day. A lot of people have work the following day. And January 2nd is where work really starts to get real. No more slacking off. No more excuses for the holidays. That's when you really have to be locked in and focused. That is the day back from a holiday of all days back, because a lot of people get a lot of time off. A lot of people take a lot of time off, whether you're in school, whether you're out of school and you go back to work. January 2nd stinks. And to be up late at night watching such intense football games that mean so much, it's exhausting going into that next day. So for New Year's Eve, when I was 25 and younger, I would say, if you're going to ask me to watch a big football game on New Year's Eve, that's crazy. You want to socialize, you want to go out, you're at a club, they're not even playing the games. You're at a bar, it's background. Once you're older and you're going to a more sophisticated party, you have a few people at an apartment or a home just watching, it's nice to have on, and it's a big plus because you could really concentrate. Last year was probably the first time I really got to enjoy the New Year's Eve games. And I think there's a certain intensity when you're a certain age that you could sit and really focus and watch it, as opposed to New Year's Day where you're just tired, you're exhausted, and you have a really big day the following day.
Well, those are all good points, but something you said earlier in your argument made me wonder, and I wanted to ask you this question. You said the day returning to work after New Year's Day is one of the worst days to go back to work. So I wanted to ask you, because I have this in my mind already, what is your least favorite day of the year going back into work? Because I already have mine at the snap.
I know what it's going to be because it's the same as you. It's the day after the Super Bowl. It's one of the worst days. Really?
No.
The day after Labor Day, maybe.
Tuesday after Labor Day is the most depressing day in the history of mankind.
That's when the Hampton season's over.
It's the worst. Oh, and you know you're going back when it comes to people who had summer Fridays. It is the worst. When you go back into work that Tuesday, your entire social life for the past 3 months is now changing. Once you get back into work that Tuesday after Labor Day, it's depressing. I legitimately want to jump off a building the Tuesday after Labor Day. So no one talked to me on the Tuesday after Labor Day. So what's yours?
Well, I said the day after the Super Bowl is really rough because again, it's intensely watching football. You're eating some of the worst food known to man. You're up late watching all the celebrations, and then you have to go into work the next day.
Yeah.
They have to make that a federal holiday. Whoever is going to be in office years to come, please make the day after Super Bowl a federal holiday. Please, for the love of God. No one wants to go into work. No one wants to go into school. Just make it a federal holiday. Please, it's enough. We've waited forever for this. Just make the day after Super Bowl a federal holiday.
And what also makes your point a good point too is that Monday after the Super Bowl, it's February, it's a miserable time of year, and then you get that period when it comes to sports. There's literally nothing.
Oh, it's so depressing.
There's nothing. It's just so depressing.
Yeah, like 2 weeks till spring training starts. There's
that's the worst. When the second the football season ends, you get the baseball geeks tweeting out, it's baseball season. No, it's not. It's fucking disgusting outside with snow on the ground and it's gross. It's not baseball season in any way, shape, or form. We still got another 2 months until baseball season. So stop with the tweets of it's base. You know what? Actually, you may have made me change my mind. It may be the Monday after Super Bowl, but the Tuesday after Labor Day, it's close. It's a toss up, but I do respect the Monday after the Super Bowl. That day sucks. It really does.
Jarrett changing his mind of the worst day of the year, and perhaps he's changing his mind when it comes to the college that he went to, their football program. Syracuse University hired Fran Brown as its next head coach. Jarrett, is Syracuse football with Fran Brown with it or not with it?
It's not with it yet. I said it to you when we were texting, Mark. For Syracuse football to be with it, they have to have a game, whether it's probably like if they're 8-0, 7-0, going into a weekend when they're playing Clemson, Florida State, or Miami. That's when Syracuse football will be with it. We've seen when Syracuse has gone into some undefeated games against Clemson in years past, and you're talking about Syracuse football. And then when they inevitably lose those games, they go on to lose 5 games in a row, and inevitably are 6-6, 7-5, are in the Pinstripe Bowl that no one gives a shit about. That's the history of Syracuse football, especially under Dino Babers.
That's the history of Syracuse football. Enough of Ernie Davis, enough of Jim Brown. That is Syracuse football.
You know what? When it comes to the history, honestly, the history. I get the history of Syracuse football. 44, Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, but it was so goddamn long ago. Let this be some new history. So let Fran Brown change the history of Syracuse football. And if Fran Brown changes the history of Syracuse football, that's when they'll become with it. You don't become with it when you're 6-6 and playing in the Fakakta whatever bowl. No one cares.
The Boca Raton Bowl.
You'll be with it when you actually are playing and competing for an ACC championship and maybe contending for what will be the 12-team college football playoff in the future. But until then, not yet. There's an opportunity for Syracuse football to be with it because Fran Brown, he brings a ton of recruiting with him. I'm excited about it, but not with it. I know what you're going to say, so go ahead and say why they're with it.
Oh, they're absolutely with it. Syracuse has 2 coaches among the top 10 recruiters, according to 24/7 Sports. Everybody is talking about Syracuse football right now. Syracuse football is taking up all the group chats. It's taking up all the conversations. There is an excitement around Syracuse football on a national level that there has not been in the past. I mean, Syracuse is looking at legitimate recruits for the first time ever, or in 10 years, most likely, given that they were looking at some of Doug Marrone, but nothing up to this caliber. And it may not be a victory just yet, but it will take some time. And I think that's where the excitement is because we've seen this with other programs. We saw what happened to Clemson with Dabo Swinney. You get Deshaun Watson first, that leads to Trevor Lawrence. Alabama, you get some great prospects, then it ends up becoming a national football powerhouse. Georgia, quietly getting some top quarterbacks. You get another national powerhouse. So for Syracuse to have 2 of the top 10 recruiters in the country is a big deal. Whether or not Fran Brown could coach, I have no idea. But there's an excitement, and it is very joyous to see Syracuse football in the news because it's always them in the running for a top 10 recruit, for a top recruit. And that's how you build a program. You can't build a program just by winning some close ones, getting some hardworking kids. You need some of that top talent. And if they can come to the JMU Dome with Fran Brown, there's going to be a lot of excitement. And I definitely think it's with it. And I am very eager to see what could happen with this Orange football program.
Well, they're in the news because they just hired a new head coach.
There's buzz, Jared. There's buzz.
What will there be buzz if they're 4-3? Will there be buzz if
I'm talking about right now?
Well, yeah.
Right now, are they with it or not with it?
No, you gotta win games. Go win games. Go compete for an ACC championship. Go try to. It's not going to happen in year 1 or year 2, but maybe within 3 years, 4 years, be in contention to be one of the top 15 teams in the country. That's when you'll be with it. I mean, when we first started this podcast, what was the definition of with it? People who go to bars who don't know much about sports, they're talking about this topic. Who the hell that doesn't know about sports is talking about Syracuse football when it comes
you're
to
a Syracuse alumni, you're talking about this. I think there's a definite excitement. And you're hearing people talk about Syracuse football who have not possibly ever talked about Syracuse football unless they were going to a tailgate.
They're talking about because they hired a new coach.
But that's what makes it exciting.
Well, it's the honeymoon phase for now. Let him go get some recruits and go win some games. Go win games. I remember when Dino Babers was hired. How many years ago? He was the coach for what?
2015.
Jesus Christ. He was the coach for that damn long?
Yeah. He's one of the longest tenured Syracuse football coaches ever.
Exactly. Like, I remember when Dino Babers was hired, people were so excited. He came from Bowling Green. He had all this energy and charisma. He's gonna turn the program around.
But Dino Babers wasn't the top recruiter in the country. Dino Babers wasn't coming straight out of Georgia, one of the top programs in the nation. Dino Babers wasn't the guy that was getting 5-star recruits left and right. 2 of Georgia's top 5 recruits next year, 5-star recruits, were because of Fran Brown. I mean, you're talking about their top guy. Kirby Smart is probably very upset that he doesn't have Fran Brown anymore.
Yeah, I think Kirby Smart is still going to be able to get recruits to go to Georgia. Yes, him losing Fran Brown, it's a big deal, but Kirby Smart built Georgia football, not Fran Brown. Let Fran Brown build Syracuse football, and if Fran Brown builds Syracuse football into a legitimately good college football program, then I'll say they're with it. I'm not going to say they're ever going to get to Georgia's level. That's never going to happen. But if he builds a legitimately consistent top 20 program, sure, I'll say they're with it. But until then, go win games. You got to go win games to become with it. And we'll see. We'll see. I'm hopeful, but remains to be seen.
Well, you could consider Jared I's hopeful Hanukkah present is for Syracuse football to be a legitimate football program. That is all the time that we have for We're Not Doing a Podcast. For Jared Least, I am Mark Weber. Have a happy Hanukkah and a happy holidays to all.